A young girl named Coco is washing clothes at a magical spring in her small village. The moment she finishes and walks away, the water instantly purifies itself. In her world, only people born with magical abilities can become witches. No matter how hard someone wishes for it, magic is something ordinary people can never obtain. Coco understands this painful truth, yet she cannot stop admiring witches and the wonders they create. Just as she returns home, something incredible catches her attention. A magnificent Pegasus carriage descends from the sky near her house. Amazed by the sight, Coco runs downstairs to tell her mother. Inside her mother's tailoring shop are 3 wealthy women who arrived in the flying carriage. Standing beside them is a mysterious white-haired man who seems completely different from the others. The man asks for a piece of fabric, and Coco quickly volunteers to cut it for him. In exchange, she asks her mother if she can take a closer look at the Pegasus carriage. Her mother reluctantly agrees, but only after Coco promises to stop talking about becoming a witch someday. As Coco carefully cuts the fabric, the white-haired man notices her incredible precision. He praises her talent, saying her hands almost work like magic. But to Coco, true magic is far greater than any ordinary skill. She speaks about witches with complete admiration. Interested in her feelings, the man asks why she loves magic so much. Coco then recalls the moment that changed her life forever. When she was younger, she met a mysterious masked witch who handed her a strange book and a wand. That single encounter awakened her dream of becoming a witch herself. Ever since then, she has treasured those gifts and continued believing in magic. But her mother always reminded her that becoming a witch was impossible, because Coco was not born with magical powers. Just then, a loud crash echoes from outside. 2 boys from the village have accidentally damaged the Pegasus carriage. The wealthy women panic at the sight of the broken vehicle, but before anger can spread, the white-haired man calmly steps forward. The man reveals himself to be a witch named Kifri. Without hesitation, Kifri offers to repair the carriage. However, after placing his hat on his head, he explains that witches cannot openly perform magic where others can see them. Coco immediately suggests using the workshop downstairs, eager to help him. Since ordinary people are forbidden from witnessing magic being cast, Kifri asks Coco to stand guard at the door while he works. She obeys, but curiosity slowly begins taking over her thoughts. When the same boys from earlier try sneaking inside to spy on him, Coco stops them, yet even she struggles to resist the temptation. Unable to control her curiosity any longer, Coco quietly peeks downstairs. Instead of waving a wand or using mysterious powers, Kifri is carefully drawing symbols onto the carriage itself. In that moment, Coco realizes that witches create magic through drawings and symbols rather than simple gestures. That discovery stays in her mind long after night falls. Back in her room, Coco examines the wand she received years ago. To her surprise, it opens like a pen. Using the special ink hidden inside, she copies the symbols from the magical book onto pieces of paper. The moment she completes the drawing, tiny sparks burst from the page like small fireworks. Coco keeps drawing symbol after symbol throughout the night. Sheets of paper soon cover her entire room, but then she finishes drawing a far more complicated symbol than the others. Before Coco can understand, dangerous ice-like structures begin spreading uncontrollably throughout the house. At that exact moment, Kifri arrives and pulls Coco out of the house to save her. Hearing the commotion, her mother rushes outside to look for Coco, and before anyone can stop it, the spreading ice reaches her and completely freezes her body solid. Coco can do nothing but watch in horror. The terrifying sight leaves Coco devastated. Kifri quickly realizes that the spell Coco activated was forbidden magic. He explains that the truth Coco discovered can never be allowed to spread. Witches are not simply born with magic. With the proper pen and special ink, anyone can use it. Because of this dangerous secret, Kifri says he must erase her memory. Desperate and heartbroken, Coco begs him not to do it. She insists that if she forgets everything, no one will be able to save her mother. She promises that she understands the magical book and can help him somehow. As Kifri listens to her, he realizes Coco may also be connected to a mysterious group he has been searching for. Seeing that, Kifri finally changes his decision. Instead of erasing her memories, he agrees to let Coco keep them. More importantly, he decides to personally teach her how to become a witch. Later, Coco arrives at Kifri's house, where she will now live and learn magic under him. Kifri shows her a magical tool filled with water before leaving the room. However, Coco does not know how to use it. After what happened before, she has become afraid of touching magical items she does not understand. Soon, a pink-haired girl named Tetia appears and teaches Coco how to use the tool properly. Tetia is very friendly and becomes extremely happy when Coco thanks her for helping. Later, another student named Riche arrives carrying pens and ink. Seeing those items immediately reminds Coco of magic and spellcasting. Coco learns that Tetia and Riche are also Kifri's students, although they do not know much about her yet. That changes when Coco mentions that she cast her first spell only one day earlier. Both girls recognize her as the child many witches have been talking about. News about the girl who used forbidden magic has already spread. Kifri soon returns and asks the girls to go upstairs while he speaks with Coco alone. He then begins explaining the history and rules of magic to her. Long ago, everyone was able to use magic freely. However, many people began using magic for evil purposes and created dangerous spells. Because of that, some people gathered together as witches and erased the memories of ordinary people. From then on, magic became a secret only witches could pass down to their apprentices. Strict rules were also created to stop dangerous spells from being used again. Those dangerous spells became known as forbidden magic. Kifri explains that any spell used directly on people is forbidden. Witches are only allowed to use magic on tools and objects instead. After explaining the rules, Kifri shows Coco many magical tools inside the house. Some of them can even be used for teleportation. He then introduces her to a magical window that can transport people to different places, including the Tower of Tomes. The Tower of Tomes is a place where copies of every magical book are stored in order to preserve magical knowledge. Kifri tells Coco that she may find information there that could help her mother. However, before she can enter the tower, she must first pass a test. After showing her around, Kifri takes Coco to her bedroom. There, she learns she will be sharing the room with another student named Agat. Once Coco is alone, Kifri speaks to someone through the magical device on his watch about Coco and her condition. Not long afterward, Agat arrives. Unlike Tetia, Agat treats Coco very harshly. She explains that she and the other students have studied and passed many tests since childhood. Because of that, she cannot accept someone from outside suddenly becoming a witch. Their argument is interrupted when Tetia arrives to announce that dinner is ready. Everyone gathers together to welcome Coco, except for Agat, who refuses to join them. The next day, Kifri officially begins teaching Coco about magic. He explains sigils, symbols, and the different types of magic. Different drawings and elements create different magical effects, and even small changes in a drawing can affect how a spell works. Coco then tries drawing a sigil herself. However, one side of the symbol becomes slightly longer than the other. Because of that imbalance, the spell's power becomes uneven. When Coco activates the spell, water suddenly shoots strongly in one direction. Unfortunately, the water hits Agat and completely soaks her. Coco immediately worries about her mistake, but Agat calmly explains what went wrong with the sigil. She points out that the uneven symbol caused the spell to become unbalanced. Seeing this, Kifri feels relieved because he believes he can leave the two girls alone without too much trouble. He tells them that he must attend a meeting and will be away for 2 or 3 days. During that time, Agat will help Coco continue studying. However, immediately after Kifri leaves, Agat tells Coco that if she wants to stay there and become a witch, she must first prove herself worthy. Agat then declares that she will personally test Coco herself. Kifri arrives at the Great Hall, where he meets another witch named Alara. She asks him about Coco, his new student, and mentions that the girl might become an important lead in finding the Brimmed caps, the mysterious group Kifri has been searching for a long time. However, Kifri explains that Coco cannot officially be called his apprentice yet. Before that can happen, she must pass the Dada range test, a difficult challenge that becomes especially dangerous during this season. Even so, Coco is already preparing herself to begin the test. Agat explains the rules to her. Coco must climb to the summit of Dada Range and collect a special herb while carrying only 3 items. For the challenge, Coco chooses a guiding orb, a vapor bubble, and Agat's flying shoes. After entering the portal, Coco suddenly finds herself alone in the middle of a forest. At first, she struggles to understand her surroundings, but she quickly learns how to use the guiding orb to guide herself through the area. After wandering through the forest forest for some time, she finally reaches the exit. There, she finally sees the true form of Dada rain. Massive floating lands shaped like giant orbs stretch high into the sky. To reach the summit, Coco must travel across these floating spheres one by one. She remembers that she has Agate's flying shoes, but using them turns out to be much harder than expected. At first, she can barely control them. Instead of rushing forward, Coco spends time practicing until she can at least stay in the air properly. Once she gains enough confidence, she flies toward one of the floating orbs and attempts to land on it. But the surface suddenly spins beneath her feet and throws her off balance. Meanwhile, back at the Great Hall, Atelier tells Kifri that he should consider moving there since many witches live together in that place. However, Kifri says he only visits the Great Hall when necessary. Atelier notices his dislike for the place and comments that his hatred for it still runs deep. Back at the Atelier, Tetia worries about Coco taking such a dangerous test. Agate, however, shows no concern at all. She believes that if Coco cannot pass the test, then she does not deserve to become an apprentice. Agate admits that she dislikes people who cannot do the things she can, especially outsiders like Coco, who suddenly entered the world of magic. Agate confidently says that Coco will fail and return soon. At that moment, things are indeed going badly for Coco. The muddy water ruins her ink, making it unusable, and she still cannot properly control the flying shoes. Exhausted and discouraged, Coco drifts along a river on a small boat. She begins thinking about how different she is from the other girls. Unlike them, she did not grow up learning about magic from childhood. Compared to them, she feels completely inferior. As she starts losing hope, Coco suddenly remembers the time she spent learning sewing from her mother. Day after day, she practiced those skills until she became good enough for even Kifri to praise her talent. That memory changes her thinking. Instead of trying to copy others, Coco decides to use the skills she already understands best. She gathers stones and pieces of cloth, shaping them into tools similar to the sewing equipment she used at home. Using the cloth, Coco creates a sail for her boat and carefully draws flying symbols onto it. However, instead of drawing the symbols in the usual way, she changes their direction so the force pushes upward instead. When she activates the spell, the boat immediately breaks apart, but the result works in her favor. The sail rises into the air and transforms into a glider, allowing Coco to fly through the skies much more smoothly than before. Using her new creation, Coco continues traveling upward until she finally reaches the area where the herbs grow. At first, collecting the herb proves difficult. During one attempt, she even crashes into one of the floating orbs by accident. Still, Coco refuses to give up. The memories of her mother and everything she learned from her continue pushing her forward. Gathering her courage one last time, Coco makes another attempt. This time, she successfully grabs the herb and completes the test. Back at the Atelier, Kifri anxiously waits for her return. When he finally activates the portal, he sees Coco coming back safely with the herb in her hands. With that achievement, Coco officially becomes his apprentice. Everyone happily celebrates her success. Tetia and the others are overjoyed to see her return safely. However, Agate becomes furious after realizing Coco actually passed the test. Unable to accept it, she quietly leaves and shuts herself away in her room. Kifri then embraces Coco and tells her that she never truly needed to prove herself in order to become his apprentice. Afterward, he gives her a proper witch outfit along with a pointed hat of her own. Seeing herself finally dressed like a real witch fills Coco with overwhelming happiness. For the first time, her dream finally feels real. But while everyone celebrates, danger is already beginning to move in the shadows. Far away at Dada Rain, the mysterious witch who once gave Coco the magical book stands watching from one of the floating orbs. Looking toward the sky, the witch quietly says that the seed has finally sprouted. Kifri begins teaching Coco about the 4 most important sigils in magic. Although there are many kinds of sigils, flame, levitation, water, and earth are considered the foundation of magic and are treated differently from the rest. Coco starts practicing them one by one. Since she wants to return Agate's flying shoes, she focuses first on levitation magic. However, no matter how hard she tries, she keeps making mistakes while drawing the sigils correctly. After watching her struggle, Kifri and Tetia suggest visiting a magic stationer's shop. The place is essentially an art supply store for witches, where magical tools and materials are sold. They believe Coco might find a wand that suits her better there. Soon, everyone from the Atelier travels to Calm, the closest city for witches. When they arrive, Coco is amazed by what she sees. The city is filled with witches, magical tools, and all kinds of supplies she has never seen before. Agathe, however, quickly separates herself from the group. She says she has no obligation to babysit Coco and decides to visit other stores by herself instead. Meanwhile, the others arrive at a magical supply shop called the Starry Sword, where Coco meets the owner, Noah. Inside the store, Coco notices a large silverwood tree growing at the center of the building. At first, she simply finds it beautiful, but she soon learns that the tree is extremely important. The magical ink used by witches is extracted from the silverwood tree, making it essential not only to the shop but to witches everywhere. Noah collects some of the liquid from the tree, places it into a flask, and gives it to Coco. Just as Coco is about to choose a wand to test the ink, she suddenly notices the masked witch outside the window. Without thinking, she immediately rushes outside and begins chasing after the mysterious figure. Tedia and the others quickly run after her. During the chase, they encounter Agathe again, and Tedia forcefully drags her along with them. After some time, Agathe finally catches up to Coco and stops her. However, by then, they realize something is very wrong. The place around them looks completely unfamiliar. The architecture is different from anything they saw in Calm, making it clear that they are no longer in the city. But their problems become even worse moments later. A dragon suddenly appears nearby, ready to attack the girls. Unknown to them, the masked witch is also watching from nearby and believes Coco to be important. Back in Calm, Tarta, Noah's grandson, informs Kifri about the suspicious person the girls followed. As soon as Kifri hears the description, he realizes the masked figure belongs to the Brimmed caps. Meanwhile, Agathe quickly takes control of the situation. She tells the others to slowly move backward. Then, the moment she sees an opening, she orders everyone to run. The dragon immediately chases after them. Trying to stop it, Coco uses a fire spell and briefly slows the creature down. However, the girls soon run into a dead end, while the dragon continues approaching from behind. Tedia completely panics and begins screaming. In her fear, she looks at Coco as though everything happening is her fault. Still, the others calm her down enough for them to think clearly about how to escape. Tedia uses her cloak to distract the dragon by making it fly around the area, while Agathe begins drawing a sigil to destroy the wall blocking their path. At that moment, Coco notices a strange sigil drawn on one of the nearby walls. Thinking it might be important, she reaches toward Agathe to warn her. However, by touching her, Coco accidentally interrupts Agathe's drawing. Agathe immediately becomes furious and harshly criticizes Coco, blaming her for everything that has happened so far. Overwhelmed by the criticism, Coco falls silent and gives up trying to explain what she saw. Fortunately, Richa has secretly been drawing several smaller sigils across the wall. When she activates all of them at once, the combined magic creates a large hole through the barrier. Everyone quickly escapes through the opening except for Coco, who remains behind for a moment, thinking about what she should do next. Back in Calm, Kifri explains to the others that the Brimmed caps are a dangerous group of witches who wear masks and old pointed caps. He admits that he never expected them to target Coco directly. Then, Coco's brush buddy suddenly appears and clings on to Kifri. Since the creature stayed behind with the girls earlier, Kifri realizes it may know where Coco and the others are, and when he asks if it can lead them to the girls, the brush buddy responds, giving Kifri and the others their first real lead to finding them. The girls continue running through the strange area, only to realize they have somehow returned to the same place as before. Seeing no easy escape, Agathe decides they should stop searching blindly and instead find a safe place to hide while they think of a proper plan. After finding cover, Coco notices Tetia sitting alone in a corner, frightened and shaken by everything happening around them. Wanting to comfort her, Coco gives Tetia her hat and even offers her own cloak to help her feel safer. At that moment, Tetia realizes she has been unfairly making Coco feel responsible for their dangerous situation. Trying to calm herself down, Tetia uses a spell that brings the group inside a soft cloud-like space. She explains that ever since she was little, she dreamed of sleeping on a cloud, and she has spent a long time trying to create a spell that could make that dream come true. Agathe and Riche quickly begin discussing the cloud-like substance and giving their opinions about it. Before the conversation turns into another argument, Agathe reminds everyone that escaping the area is still their biggest problem. Coco then finally tells the others about the strange casting seal she saw earlier on the wall. The group realizes that the seal is probably connected to the spell trapping them inside this strange place. If they can reach it, they may be able to break the magic and escape. Agathe believes the only solution is defeating the dragon guarding the area. However, Coco comes up with a different idea after listening to Agate and Tetia's earlier discussion about the cloud spell. Coco remembers the dragon crashing headfirst into a wall earlier and believes the creature might simply want comfort rather than fighting. Because of that, she suggests creating a giant cloud bed to make the dragon fall asleep peacefully. Although Agate admits the idea is good, she still does not trust Coco's ability to draw proper casting seals yet. Because of this, she assigns tasks to everyone except Coco. While the others work on the plan, Coco quietly watches how they draw their seals. Without anyone noticing, she begins practicing by copying their movements and repeatedly drawing different casting seals on her own. Meanwhile, Agate struggles to solve one major problem. She cannot figure out how to create a cloud strong enough to support the dragon's enormous weight. That changes when she notices Coco's repeated drawings. After practicing over and over again, Coco finally succeeds in drawing a perfect fire spell seal. Seeing this, Agathe realizes a repetition spell could solve their problem perfectly. Together, the girls prepare 5 different casting seals that create fluffy clouds made of sand. By combining them with the repetition spell, the sand continuously recreates itself even after pressure is placed on it. This allows the cloud bed to support the dragon's massive body without collapsing. Once the plan is complete, the girls create several enormous cloud beds. The dragon soon lies down on them peacefully and quickly falls asleep. Tetia watches the scene in amazement, realizing it is the first time one of her spells has made someone truly happy. With the dragon asleep, the girls finally reach the casting seal located at the top of a tower. Since they are unsure how to fully deactivate it, Tetia carefully erases part of the seal. At the same time outside, Kifri discovers the same casting seal and is suddenly pulled into the strange alternate dimension himself. The moment the portal opens completely, the tower begins collapsing from the force created by the magic. During the chaos, Agathe loses her balance and falls from the tower. Fortunately, Kifri immediately understands the situation and rescues her before she can hit the ground. After bringing her to safety, he quickly begins drawing a spell to deal with the dragon. As the beast prepares to attack, Kifri unleashes an enormous spell that creates a giant water dragon. The magical creature is far larger and stronger than the real dragon, completely overwhelming it and knocking it unconscious with ease. Soon afterward, Tetia and Riche fly up to Kifri. Relieved to see them safe, he finally calms down for a moment. However, there is still one serious problem left. Coco is nowhere to be found. Meanwhile, Coco is unconscious in a strange dark place alongside the Brimmed Cap witch. The masked witch happily says that the seed they planted is finally beginning to grow. The Brimmed Cap reveals that the entire test was prepared specifically for Coco and claims they can teach her far more than Kifri ever could. After saying that, the masked witch disappears and leaves Coco behind. Later, Coco wakes up in calm with everyone gathered around her. Overcome with emotion, she begins crying and apologizing for everything that happened. However, Kifri tells her that everyone escaped because of her idea. He explains that coming up with good solutions is just as important as drawing powerful casting seals. Not long afterward, Nolnoa arrives. Kifri immediately tells him to investigate the special ink used by the Brimmed Caps. With a serious expression on his face, Kifri also warns Nolnoa to keep everything they discovered completely secret from the other witches. Agate is sitting inside the Atelier with her books, trying very hard to study. Coco, however, is making enough noise to disturb even a sleeping cat, so Agate loses her patience. Rather than argue, Coco quietly leaves the house and decides to study outside. Poor Agate returns to her work and practices a spell that creates a pillar of light, but But the result still isn't what she wants. She gazes up at the sky, deep in thought, and the shining pillar even attracts a little bird. Not far away, Coco is also struggling with her lessons. She still uses her old pen because she never managed to get a new one during her previous journey, and her worn drawing tools make learning magic much harder. Seeing her frustration, Kifri appears as though he has been expecting this very moment. He invites her into the kitchen and serves her a delicious stew from a magical cookpot that endlessly repeats the instant the food was prepared, so the meal never spoils no matter how much time passes. Then, he places several carapace yams before her and asks her to cook one using fire magic. Coco eagerly draws a sigil and lights a flame, but the yam is so heavy that it smothers the fire at once. Most children would have given up, yet Coco is not one of them. She redraws the sigil again and again until she finally makes the yam float inside a stronger flame and cooks it properly. That, my child, is exactly the lesson Kifri wants her to learn. Whenever learning something new feels difficult, a person should weave it into everyday life and let ordinary tasks become teachers. Kifri tells her that practicing magic while cooking will suit her perfectly, and Coco agrees at once. Before long, Richie and Tedia join them in the kitchen, and the lesson turns into a cheerful group activity. Later, they decide to have a picnic. Rain falls from the sky, but Kifri simply creates a magical barrier above them, and the drops slide away as though the weather itself has been politely asked to wait. When the rain finally stops, Coco runs to invite Agate and nearly crashes into a stern-looking man with a beard. Kifri arrives only moments later and immediately looks uneasy. The reason soon becomes clear. The man is Olrugio, and when he hears that Coco is Kifri's new apprentice, he grabs her by the arm and tries to take her away. He insists that they should stay far from the brimmed caps. Kifri quickly uses the water on the floor to stop him and asks him to discuss the matter calmly inside. You see, my dear, Olrugio is the Atelier's watchful eye. Every Atelier has one. Their duty is to observe mages and ensure that nobody misuses magic. If matters become serious, they can summon the Knights Moralis, the guardians responsible for protecting the secrets of magic. Kifri argues that if the Knights are called, they will erase not only Coco's memories of magic, but also the love she feels for it. Then he says something that leaves everyone stunned, since he is the one responsible for revealing their world to her. His own memories should be erased as well if Coco's must disappear. Those words strike Olrugio silent. After a long pause, he decides to say nothing further and quietly returns to his room. Sometime later, Coco's little brush buddy wanders into Olrugio's room and forces the girl to visit him again. There, she discovers that her pet is no longer wet because Olrugio has warmed it with magic. He even uses the same spell on Coco so she will not catch a cold. Just as she is about to leave, she notices the ground glowing beneath her feet. She is delighted and soon learns that Olrugio created the spell himself. After hearing about her past and the joy magic is brought into her life, he finally begins to understand why Kifri refuses to let that precious love disappear. Meanwhile, Agate remains at her studies, endlessly practicing her pillar of light. She wants to perfect the spell, perform well on her next test, and finally earn work beyond the Atelier. Then, almost as if fate has heard her wish, a man suddenly arrives and desperately asks for Kifri's help. The moment Agate realizes this could become outside work, she immediately volunteers to go with him.
And that is it for today. If you enjoyed this recap, please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and feel free to write whatever you want in the comments section. Thank you for watching.